Welcome back to the deep dive. We pull the threads of your source material, analyze the structure, and really trying to extract the knowledge you need. Today we're wrestling with something I think we've all experienced. It's that really painful feeling of the abandoned project. You know exactly what I mean. You get the lumber, it looks great, you clear out the garage space, maybe even buy a fancy new tool. You're like, this weekend I'm building that coffee table, or finally that shed's going up, or maybe just a simple birdhouse. You start with this huge burst of energy, totally convinced this is it. You're becoming a woodworker. And then, maybe weeks later, just a pile of wood. Cut, maybe a little warped now, just sitting there. It's like this monument to good intentions, right? But also, failed follow-through. It is the ultimate DIY frustration. And your sources, well, they tell us something really critical about why this happens. Okay, let's unpack this. They argue that the difference, between that pile of wood and a finished masterpiece isn't really about your motivation or even how much time you have. It sounds like it's fundamentally about the structure and the clarity of the instructions you're using. So our mission today is to really analyze why that initial DIY spark fizzles out mid-project. And crucially, what the source material says is the actual roadmap, the step-by-step guide. That can pretty much guarantee success.
Yeah, and that really raises a key question, doesn't it? Is project failure? Is it a personal thing, like a lack of willpower? Or is it fundamentally an issue of clarity? Is the map just incomplete right from the beginning? When we look at the common roadblocks, the ones identified across these sources, they point overwhelmingly towards, technical confusion, structural ambiguity. It's much more that than just, being lazy. So we really need to dig into the why. Why do people stall? Because understanding that root cause, that tells you what the solution needs to be.
Absolutely. Let's jump right into that, the anatomy of the abandoned project.
Yeah.
Because the sources gave us 5 really specific, very common reasons people just lose steam. And we need to look past the usual excuses like, oh, I just got busy. We need to focus on the structural problems that, stop the hammer cold.
Okay. We can probably group the first 3 failures around this idea of technical clarity. Or, more often, the lack of it in most generic guidance. So, number 1, lack of detailed plans. What's interesting here, maybe even a bit sneaky, is that generic tutorials, the kind you find easily online, they're often optimized for quick visual appeal, getting clicks, not really for comprehensive teaching.
Ah, so they look good, but they're shallow.
Exactly. They're like silent assassins for your motivation. Because they routinely skip steps or, and this is critical, they assume you already know advanced techniques, like how to properly cut a dado joint or maybe create a specific type of joinery. That creates instant confusion once the easy part is done and you hit something complex.
Right, you feel like you've hit a wall you didn't even know was there. Precisely. And that leads into number 2, which is where, honestly, most beginners trip up hard. Unclear measurements and material specs.
The sources really stress how small errors early on, they just compound. They get exponentially worse later.
Like the classic 2x4 issue.
That's the perfect example. A tutorial might just say, use a 2x4. A beginner might literally measure 2 inches by 4 inches.
But it's not actually 2x4, is it?
Never. A standard dried plain stud is usually, 1.5 inches by 3.5 inches?
Yeah, something like that.
So if your plan doesn't explicitly state the actual measurement you need to cut, or if it's just vague, that single missing fraction, that vague dimension, it can completely wreck the squareness. It can sabotage the whole build.
Wow. Okay, that's such a crucial, very technical detail. And I think we've all made that mistake, haven't we? And when those measurements are vague, it leads right into reason number 3, which is being overwhelmed by complexity. Because if your dimension is wrong, your cut is off, and suddenly that first joint you try to make, it just doesn't line up cleanly. And a project that looked totally manageable on paper or in the video suddenly feels impossible. Intimidating.
And beginners often tackle projects that are just too advanced for them, maybe because the tutorial wasn't clear about the skill level needed.
So you get immediate stress when things just don't fit.
Yeah, these technical failures, they create this acute cognitive load. It's mentally taxing. And the sources showed this load leads directly into the psychological hurdles. If you can't figure out why your pieces aren't lining up, you just stop trusting your own abilities. You feel incompetent.
Exactly. Okay, so if the first 3 points of those technical tripwires, they feed straight into the final 2 issues. These seem more about guidance than psychology. The 4th reason is not enough guidance, specifically written guidance. We're so visual these days, right?
Very true.
Pictures, beautiful videos, they might inspire you to start. But the sources argue pretty compellingly that without detailed, written instructions right alongside them. Things like exploded diagrams,
Mm.
proper hardware lists, cut lists.
Yeah.
Without that stuff, DIRs are just frequently left stuck.
You can't bridge that gap, can you? Between the pretty finished photo and the pile of wood in your hands. You need prescriptive direction.
You need the how. And all that accumulated frustration, the technical issues, the lack of clear next steps that lead straight to the fifth and final point, loss of motivation.
But again, this isn't just about being lazy. It's more like decision fatigue.
Okay, explain that.
Well, when mistakes pile up and you're stuck because you genuinely don't know what to do next, the mental energy it takes to troubleshoot a bad cut, maybe go buy new materials, figure out the missing step, it just becomes overwhelming. It's genuinely hard to find the energy to start over or even just push past that point of confusion.
Right. So what's fascinating here, reading through the source material, is the strong case they make that the core problem really isn't a lack of skill in people. It's more a fundamental lack of structured, complete guidance. It's like the support system failed, not the person.
That's the argument. And it follows that the solution has to directly counteract every single one of those 5 failure points, all at once.
Okay, so if those are the 5 big reasons projects get abandoned, how do the sources say we fix it? How do we pivot? This leads us right into the framework they advocate for. Basically, switching away from those incomplete, often free, generic tutorials and moving towards ready-to-use, really comprehensive blueprints. The sources cite specific examples, mentioning collections like Ted's Woodworking plans as sort of the gold standard for what this detailed guidance should look like.
Yeah, and the key difference they highlight is the sheer scale and scope of the structural support these models offer.
Yeah.
We're not just talking about buying, one random PDF plan online. The source material points to a collection boasting over 16,000 woodworking projects. 16,000.
Whoa, okay. 16,000, that's a lot.
It is, but that volume is critical. It ensures you probably never have to settle for a project that's almost what you wanted or one that looks way too hard. It covers everything from incredibly simple, quick things like that birdhouse we talked about,
Right.
all the way up to really complex major structures like intricate custom furniture or even professional grade sheds.
Okay, wait, let me jump in here. Just playing devil's advocate or maybe proxy for the listener. It sounds great that these plans solve the clarity issue. But doesn't having 16,000 options instantly create a new problem, like total option fatigue, analysis paralysis? What do the sources say about that?
That's a really fair and necessary question. The sources definitely address this, primarily by emphasizing organization. The value isn't just the raw number, it's the structured way it's presented.
How so?
Well, the plans are apparently sorted into very clear, organized categories, so finding what you want is easier. And crucially, they're clearly tagged, ranging from, say, beginner-friendly right up to expert level.
Ah, okay.
So the structure itself helps prevent that overwhelm. A beginner can effectively filter out, 15,000 complex projects.
Yeah.
And just focus on the 50 or 100 that are explicitly marked as a safe, simple starting point.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. It's like a guided path through the library, not just dumping the whole library on you. So let's get specific. What exactly do these structured plans offer that directly fixes those 5 problems we talked about earlier? First, you said step-by-step instructions for every single project. That solves the skipping steps problem, right? It creates a clear, verified sequence you just follow.
Correct. No more guessing what happened between step 3 and step 4.
Okay. Second, the sources emphasize clear measurements and diagrams, often with multiple views, maybe even those exploded diagrams.
Yes, exactly. Those are key.
And that actively avoids those little fractional mistakes and gives you visual confirmation that you actually understand how it goes together.
It totally eliminates the confusion around, say, nominal versus actual lumber dimensions, because the measurements are specified for the cut you need to make.
Got it. No ambiguity.
Precisely, and that level of detail, it just eliminates that mid-project stalling that comes from ambiguity. You get no more guesswork. The sources are really clear on this. Knowing every single cut, angle, and joint is explained clearly. It provides the smooth, uninterrupted flow.
So if a beginner hits a complex joint,
A blueprint basically provides a mini tutorial right there. Often with videos or really detailed diagrams specifically for that tricky step, you never have to pause, put down your tools, and then spend 2 hours searching online trying to figure out how to do a mortise and tenon joint.
that makes a huge difference.
The structure is the roadmap. It handles the cognitive burden for you. You stop having to be both the builder and the engineer trying to figure out the design flaws. You just focus on execution. That
Yeah.
shift, that's the fundamental difference the sources are pointing to.
Okay, so let's pivot to the outcome. What does this transformation actually mean for you, the listener, the learner? If we step back from the tools for a second, this translates into some really powerful, tangible benefits, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It goes beyond just getting a finished object. It changes how you see your own capability.
Absolutely. Let's talk practical savings first. Structured plans mean saving significant time and money
How so?
by basically eliminating wasted wood and avoiding those really frustrating multiple and expensive trips back to the hardware store because you miscalculated a beam length or cut the wrong angle.
Yeah.
When you have a precise, verified cut list and materials list up front, you buy once, cut once. That efficiency directly translates into economy. Less waste, less cost.
Okay, saving time, saving money, that's huge. And this feels like where the core motivational loop really kicks in. The sources explain how these structured plans build competence and confidence at the same time. By letting you start small, with clearly marked easy projects, you basically guarantee success early on. And that success fuels your desire to do more. You hit simple milestones quickly, you see something real you build, and that achievement builds confidence, which, thinking back, is the real antidote to that loss of motivation point, isn't it?
It's all about psychological momentum. It really is. When you finish, say, a birdhouse and it looks great, it came together perfectly, you're genuinely far more excited to maybe tackle a small bench next.
Right.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the ultimate goal isn't just building one nice thing. It's about internalizing the process. It's about completing more projects consistently and successfully transforming what might have been a stressful hobby into a genuinely rewarding craft. With a comprehensive blueprint system, the sources strongly suggest you move much faster from that initial idea to the finished build. You can achieve that, flow state people talk about,
Yeah.
and that feeling of satisfaction, that deep, really palpable feeling of finishing what you started every time. That seems to be the core value proposition here.
That sense of accomplishment. It's priceless, isn't it? And it's so clearly tied less to some innate skill you either have or don't, and more to just clarity, having a good map. So to recap our deep dive today, the central thesis from the sources seems undeniably clear. The secret to actually finishing your DIY projects. It's less about finding more brute force motivation and much more about achieving clarity and direction through comprehensive structured guidance. That incomplete generic tutorial you found online, it might actually be the ultimate enemy of your finished project.
It's well put. Knowledge is always most valuable when it's understood and actually applied, right? The sources definitely demonstrate that for complex, multi-step tasks like building something, that structural support, the clear plan, is essential. So here's a final thought to maybe chew on. If clarity and a proven step-by-step roadmap are the keys to finishing a physical project like a shed or a table, where else? Where else in your life or maybe in your professional work might you be mistakenly blaming a lack of personal motivation or willpower? When the real issue is simply the lack of a complete, detailed, non-ambiguous blueprint for success.
Ooh, that is a challenging thought to mull over. Food for thought indeed. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into why your tools might be collecting dust and how maybe just finding a better blueprint could completely change that story. We'll see you next time.